Hey guys, it's Dan here, and we are going to be working on the handle and detailing the handle and showing you how you can assemble the handle part of the 3D printed Stormbreaker that my friend Henry designed. And we are going to get into just the handle right now, so that way we can break these videos into stuff that's manageable for people to watch and understand, and it's not a really long, informative video that's just bonkers long. So we're going to get into this. So let's get started. So it started printing well, then it stopped printing well again. I've wasted so much filament on this. I don't think it's the problem that I just fixed, but I think it's doing the exact same thing because I don't know. So the extruder gear works fine. I think it looks like it's tight, but it looks like the stepper that's driving it is somehow not getting enough power. I don't know. Alright, so like in the last video where I made the Flying Iron Man, not the rocket, but the other one, I showed that this part wasn't completely finished because my printer stopped working. I've got it mostly working now. Hopefully it's working fully. So I'm going to sand down to this black line that I had, which is where I started the rest of the print at. I'm going to do the rest by hand with a file just to get it smooth, but I also wanted it to do that because I wanted it to slightly melt the plastic and make this layer a little thicker for glue. And for gluing, I'm going to use super glue, Insta adhesive spray stuff, and I'm going to use a filler after that because it's not fully there. But as you can see, there's a drill bit in here. Loud noise. And the reason I'm gluing that in is if I get glue on the drill bit, I don't really care because I can just clamp this into my hand drill and undrill it out. So it'll be totally fine if it accidentally gets glued in. Alright, so those gaps I'm going to use filler, and I'm going to make sure everything's really solid and strong. I even use epoxies and stuff. Okay, so regardless of which version you get, if you get the regular version or the high detailed version, it's going to be broken into pieces that your printer can print, obviously. So we are going to first be printing off all these pieces, separate them out, and then for mine, since I live in the US and the guy who designed this is in Spain, I'm using 1/4 20-inch thread throughout the entire thing. And he used a different size, which is what the holes are actually sized up to, which is in millimeters, 8, 6, something like that. I don't remember, but the threads that I used fit perfectly. And when I put it on there, I used the drill, just like this bottom clip shows, and screwed all the pieces in, and I glued them with super glue. So all these pieces are glued together with super glue. I also found out that if I use super glue to fill in the gaps in between them, and then use instant spray activator, that it did a really good job of doing filling. So I've been testing different fillers, and I have some other stuff that I'm going to test on the other parts. But so far that did a really solid bind. It binded really well, and it was really strong. So I like it. It's not like the wood filler that's just like, it's cakey and it falls out. I don't know. It didn't really stick. I don't know why people recommend it. They probably have better experience than I did. So one thing you'll know is that this handle is 3D printed, and you want to have some infill so it actually can hold weight, because there's going to be a head on the end. And when you're swinging this around, you don't want to break in half. My printer that I had before I got my other printer printed this part, and I think this part. This part it printed well, but this part it printed like with like layer inconsistencies all the way up, so to the point where you could like squeeze it and it would go. So right here you can actually see that there's a little resin spot. I drilled a hole into it and poured some Smoothcast 320 into it and filled this entire part. So this is solid right here, and this is strong. And then the same with the top part. This top part, I wanted all these to be strong, so I filled the top of this whole piece with Smoothcast 320 also, so that way it's solid from here all the way down to where your hand is. And then the other printer printed this totally solid. It took 14 hours and 46 minutes. Let's get it off the build plate and have a nice look at it. Okay, so we're looking at the details on this thing. There are so many details. My friend Henry really made this detailed, so these lines, we can get rid of those. That's really no problem at all. Once we acetone smooth this, it's going to be the best looking thing ever. So I was messing around with printer settings and I printed this model, and you can see now that the prints are coming out really nicely. You can see lots of detail, it's all smooth, everything's good. There's parts where there were supports where it's obviously needs some touch up, but this I saw on the 3D Printing Nerd, and that's going to be probably in another video, so I'm going to be finishing that, but it's going to be a lot easier to finish than that sort of stuff. So let's get on with this build. Other than that, with all these clips you're seeing, we just had some really good time texturing it, sanding it, filling it. All the lines, I had multiple lines because I had the print fail a couple times because my printer was just not accepting that it wanted to be a printer. So there's multiple lines that you can't see anymore just because I did so many layers of sanding and filling. Yeah, so I have it all up to here, and that's because the way that this is assembled, you have to assemble the full thing before you can glue it all together. So I don't have this fully sanded and filled in yet. I'm going to do that after I get everything closer to being done. And we're just doing the handle part because if you do an entire video series on this, it's just going to be a video that's too long, because I want you guys to know how to do this stuff relatively easily without having to scrub through an entire video. Just looking for that one segment. Yeah, so we got the handle detailed. We used a little file, a rasp, to like when we're done, we just took a little rasp and just go across the edge. In fact, I was using this one, so I just took a little round file. It's like a rat tail file, I think that's what it's called. Could be totally wrong. And just like scratching the surface of it. This is after like 2 or 3 coats. I did it on each coat so that way there'd be a layering system. And that gives a good bark texture to it without it being like one of those spray cans where it's like sort of ripply textury. So that way it's more like a bark texture going this way, so that way it's more uniform visually, at least in my opinion. And all the 3D printed detail still shines through, so all this stuff like is still like really good looking. Yeah, so after we did that, we're going to do paint on it. I'm not sure if I'm going to paint it now before I put the head on or paint it all together, but since this is primed, it's ready to be painted. And I think that's all you need to know for the handle right now. So you can assemble it the way I assembled it in these videos you're seeing in the bottom, and you can do all that stuff. If you feel like it's unsafe because your printer was printing too thin of an infill, you can definitely pour a resin into it. I used some tape, I think, to hold off some like little parts and just like poured it in, sloshed it around, poured it in, sloshed it around. Yeah, so that should be good for you guys. Other than that, I look forward to you guys seeing the rest of this build series, and you need to check out Henry's stuff. So all of his stuff is going to be linked in the description, but he is in Spain. He designed all this stuff. He's designing another one right now where it's going to have light up lights and smoke coming out of it, and he's in the process of doing all the groundwork for that right now. He's got most of it done, I think, and it's looking really cool. So if you want to print something like this, something like that, or something that's anything related to Marvel, he has a bunch of Thor stuff, he has some Black Widow stuff. Just check out his Etsy and check out his Instagram. I'm going to have all that linked below. So aside from anything that's related to this, we have the people that support stuff related to this. So these people, these are my Patreon. They pay money to me monthly, and it's not a whole lot, but right now their money is going towards stuff like this. And you can check out the benefits. There's actually benefits on my Patreon, so you can check that out on the link below. And aside from Patreon, we have all of this stuff over here, which is videos. We have links over here. So I'm making stuff over here or doing parkour or combining them. This is like my Patreon and my subscribe buttons if you're too lazy to look in the bottom description. And we will see you guys in the next store build or the next build that I'm doing.